there is a seduction in pleasure that few ever question. It arrives softly, dressed as reward, whispering promises of satisfaction. But beneath its velvet voice lies a truth few dare to see. Pleasure often wears the mask of hunger. Not hunger for food, or sex, or laughter, but for something far more elusive: stillness, wholeness, the kind of peace that does not demand stimulation to exist. We are told that pleasure is the goal, that happiness is found in indulgence, that comfort is the sign of a life well lived. But what if we've misunderstood? What if pleasure, as we know it, is not fulfillment, but distraction? What if every scroll, every bite, every brief dopamine spike is not a celebration, but a quiet escape from something deeper, older, and infinitely more human? You wake up, your fingers move before your thoughts do. You touch the phone as if it's an extension of your body. There is no intention, only motion. A reel flashes by. You laugh without remembering the punchline. Another video, another flick of the thumb. Hours pass in fragments, yet the ache remains. That soft, gnawing emptiness. Not dramatic, not loud, just persistent. Like a faint echo bouncing off the walls of a room you forgot existed. So you eat, not because you're hungry, but because you crave a pause. A moment where the noise is replaced by taste, even if it fades too quickly. You consume sweetness, saltiness, whatever can tether you to the present. But afterward, there's a shadow, a guilt that doesn't speak in words, but in fatigue. And deep down, you know it. You weren't feeding your body. You were feeding your silence. You were trying to calm a storm you've never dared to name. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the hidden self we bury beneath our personas, beneath our roles, our obligations, our compulsions. And in the modern age, our favorite burial tool is pleasure. It's easy. It's fast. It doesn't ask questions. But each time we reach for it, we lose the chance to listen to the part of us that aches not for stimulation, but for truth. We tell ourselves we are choosing joy, but so often we are choosing anesthesia. We are numbing, not living, distracting, not healing. We mistake the spike in chemicals for the presence of meaning. We confuse temporary relief with inner peace, and when the artificial high fades, we're left not with clarity, but with a deeper hunger than before. And this is the wound. We were raised to believe that our worth is measured by how well we perform, how happy we seem, how little we inconvenience others with our sadness. So when pain arrives, we silence it. Not because it's wrong, but because we learned, often very early, that it is not allowed, that crying earns nothing, that expressing loneliness brings shame. And so we perform, we smile, we overachieve, we entertain, and the world claps, never noticing the child inside us who just wanted to be held, not admired. That child doesn't disappear. It becomes the silence beneath our laughter, the emptiness beneath our pleasures. It becomes the reason we binge content we don't even enjoy, eat food we're not even tasting, chase love we don't even feel. Because in all of it, we are hoping, desperately, that something will finally touch the place inside us that has been waiting. But nothing ever does, not truly, because what we are searching for cannot be found through consumption. It can only be met through confrontation, through the brave, unglamorous act of facing our inner world without flinching. And this is what Jung meant. Healing begins not in the light, but in the darkness we've refused to enter. Most people are not broken. They are simply unaware that what they call pleasure is often just an attempt to outrun themselves, unaware that their addictions are not about the thing itself, but about the space it temporarily fills, the silence it interrupts, the emotion it buries. And so, they go on, thinking they are weak, when in truth, they are simply untrained in the language of their own soul. But what if, just once, you didn't reach for the quick fix? What if you allowed the discomfort to speak? What if you treated the ache not as a problem to solve, but as a message to decode? You might hear something surprising. I am tired of pretending. I want to feel without being judged. I need rest, not noise. These are not flaws. These are fragments of your truth. And the moment you stop silencing them with pleasure is the moment you begin to return to yourself. This doesn't mean rejecting pleasure altogether. It means meeting it with awareness. It means asking, is this true nourishment? Or is it a distraction wrapped in sweetness? Is this a choice? Or is it a reflex? The difference is everything, because true pleasure is quiet. It doesn't scream for your attention. It doesn't demand you escape yourself. It invites you deeper. It leaves you feeling more you, not less. It expands your awareness. It doesn't shrink it, and once you begin to feel the difference, you can never unsee it. The phone still exists. The chocolate still tastes sweet. The laughter still matters. But now, you're no longer chasing shadows. You're no longer using pleasure to fill a hole that can only be healed by presence. And in that presence, something sacred begins to emerge. Not a high, not a thrill, but a stillness, a return, a homecoming to the self beneath all the masks. And that is the beginning of real joy. Pleasure is far more than a momentary sensation. It carries within it the weight of memory, a silent conditioning of the body and mind. Each time we grasp at pleasure to drown out pain, we are, in essence, training ourselves to fear the very absence of noise. Stillness. This stillness, once encountered, becomes unbearable. It reveals the rawness we've tried to escape. That is why many of us cannot bear to be alone with ourselves, why silence feels like a punishment rather than a refuge. It explains the need for constant background noise, the music in the shower, the endless scrolling, the compulsive chatter, anything to fill the void. Carl Jung understood this intricate dance. Pleasure itself is innocent. It is neither enemy nor friend. It is the way we relate to it that determines its role in our lives. When pleasure becomes a tool to avoid pain, a barrier erected to keep us from facing ourselves, it ceases to be a source of joy and instead morphs into a subtle foe. The real adversary is not pleasure. It is the escape it permits. Now, consider the metaphor of the desert wanderer. Imagine someone lost in an endless expanse of sand, chasing after illusions shimmering in the heat. Every mirage disappears the moment it is pursued, yet the traveler persists, believing the next one will be real. This relentless chase mirrors how we often pursue pleasure without intention, an empty quest for fulfillment through distractions that vanish as soon as we reach them. True pleasure, the kind that feeds the soul, stands in stark contrast to this illusion. It does not scream for attention or offer quick fixes. Instead, it reveals itself softly, almost imperceptibly. It arises in the depths of a meaningful conversation, in the quiet triumph of overcoming a fear, in waking up one day, free from the grip of old compulsions. This pleasure asks for patience, presence, and courage because it demands we meet ourselves fully. It is not easy, but it is the only pleasure that truly satisfies. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And in this avoidance, pleasure becomes the most exquisite illusion humanity has crafted, a beautiful, deceptive veil that hides our most profound fears and deepest desires." Close your eyes and travel back to your earliest days. Imagine the sharp sting of a scraped knee, the rawness of pain that brings tears to your eyes. In that moment, a comforting voice interrupts, not with understanding, but with distraction. "Here, take this cookie. Don't cry." Or, "Stop crying. The cartoon is on." These words, these gestures, quietly shape your inner world. They imprint a silent lesson on your developing mind. Pain must be hidden. Feelings are weaknesses to be smoothed over. And what fills the void left behind? Pleasure. As years unfold, this lesson becomes second nature. Without knowing it, you master the art of evasion, fluently speaking the language of distraction. Pleasure emerges as your interpreter. It tells the world you're fine when the truth is you're broken. It masks the emptiness with laughter when your heart is screaming. It wears a smile to hide a scream. This is the paradox few ever articulate. The more you substitute feeling with sensation, the more you estrange yourself from your authentic self. Carl Jung's insight pierces this veil. When we ignore the world within, the world outside clamors to be heard. And what dominates the external landscape today but the relentless roar of pleasure, the constant buzz of notifications, the hypnotic scroll, the insistent binges? They are not merely distractions. They are a deafening chorus drowning out the whisper of our deeper needs. But what is it we avoid hearing? Beneath that noise lies a tender ache, a profound longing for purpose, for connection, for recognition. The pain of being unseen. Pleasure is not inherently harmful. When embraced mindfully, it is sacred, a gentle balm, a moment of grace. But when it supplants presence, it becomes a toxin. Have you ever noticed the quiet guilt that creeps in after indulgence? After one more episode watched, a message sent impulsively, a needless purchase or eating without hunger. That guilt does not arise from moral failure. It is the echo of a soul still hungry, a hunger for something more than momentary escape. This misunderstanding extends to Jung's concept of shadow work. It is often mistaken as an exploration of darkness or morbidity. Yet, it is something far richer. Shadow work is the brave acknowledgement of those times you traded your truth for temporary relief. It is the compassionate act of saying to yourself, "I see you now, and I choose presence over avoidance." There was once someone who couldn't stop chasing after love. Not just any love, intense, consuming, all-encompassing love. They called themselves a hopeless romantic, but every relationship followed the same pattern. Passion flared, obsession took hold, then everything collapsed, only to begin again. When asked why they kept returning to this cycle, they answered, "I just love love." Yet beneath that answer lay a different truth. It wasn't love they loved, it was distraction. Because when alone, the silence felt too loud, the wounds inside remained untouched, and pleasure became a fragile bandage, holding for a while, then tearing away. This story echoes through millions of lives. People confuse longing with love, scrolling with joy, numbing with healing. The danger isn't that pleasure exists. The danger lies in never asking why we need it. Pleasure is not healing. It is not peace. It is not power. It is a tool, and like any tool, it can be dangerous when misused. Think back to the last time you chose restraint. You ignored the pull of a message, resisted a craving, or said no to a distraction. Afterwards, you felt something deeper: pride, calm, trust. Because discipline isn't control, it is self-trust. And when you trust yourself, pleasure is no longer a master, but a choice. That's when pleasure becomes beautiful, free, intentional, genuine. Now imagine walking into a quiet room. No noise, no phone, just yourself. Instead of fear, you feel peace. Not because life is perfect, but because you are whole. This is what Jung called individuation, becoming complete not by denial or constant striving, but by embracing all parts of yourself. To feel pleasure without using it as a shield, to sit in silence without dread, to be alone and still be content. You don't reach this place by chasing highs. You reach it by lowering the volume on distractions and hearing what they cover up. This means noticing the impulse to scroll and asking, "What am I avoiding?" It means allowing loneliness to exist without filling it with sugar, sex, or screens. It means choosing the slower pleasure, one that takes effort, patience, presence. True pleasure isn't instant. It is earned. The best laughs come from trust. The best meals follow effort. The deepest connections come when you are truly seen, not swiped. If this unsettles you, that's awakening. Not dramatic or loud, but quiet and certain. It asks, will you keep numbing the ache or face yourself fully, without anesthesia? Jung taught that our neuroses come not from trauma itself, but from refusing to face what trauma leaves behind. Pleasure used unconsciously guarantees avoidance. Now that you see this, what will you do? Here's a hard truth. To reclaim your life from false pleasure, you must admit you betrayed yourself, not once, but often. Every quick fix, every just 5 more minutes, every escape from silence was a quiet turning away. This is not shame, it is awakening. You survived. Now you can live. Once you see the loop, the party loses its thrill. Scrolling stops soothing. Hookups don't fill the void. The real pain wasn't boredom. It was the absence of self. Imagine your life as a house with a wounded child inside. Instead of opening the door, you built a carnival outside. Lights, music, distractions. The child waits unseen. Unchecked pleasure builds this carnival. Healing is walking inside, sitting with the child and saying, "I'm here. You can speak." Jung didn't want us addicted to stillness, but unafraid of it. Silence is not absence, but presence of all we avoided. Finally, the last myth to break. Pleasure isn't the goal. Happiness isn't constant feeling good. Freedom isn't indulgence. Freedom is not needing. True pleasure is the moment you realize you don't need distraction. You sit in stillness and smile, not empty, but full of presence, truth, power. You become someone who no longer chases highs because peace lives within. People notice. They ask why you changed. You smile, knowing they don't see. You're not avoiding. You're present. That terrifies many, because when someone stops needing pleasure, they become free. Marketing loses power. Addictions lose grip. Presence becomes rebellion. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You are not cravings. You are not feelings consumed. You create meaning. Meaning isn't easy. It demands, but it nourishes deeper than pleasure ever could. So next time craving calls, pause. Not to resist or shame, but to ask, what do I truly need? That breaks the loop. You hold the pen. You are not your hunger. You choose how to feed it. Pleasure no longer traps. It becomes sacred. Joy you don't chase. is the only joy worth having. If this exploration has stirred something within you, share your thoughts in the comments or simply your presence. Thank you for walking this path with us today. If this journey has stirred something within you, reflection, awareness, even clarity, know that you are not alone. Until next time, take care of your energy and honor your intuition.